to Debate Hub. I am Cheshire
Hi.
Master Debater. I got a new costume. By costume I mean uniform. This is my definitely not Pornhub, Debate Hub, Hooters uniform.
I don't know what other branding it could be if not Debate Hub.
I know, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
There you go.
I'm pretty happy. Look at the pants are white, black, and orange too.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's gross. I love it.
You are outfitted.
I am outfitted today. I am.
This is what
up
happens
for
when
it.
you go on vacation. You come back with.
Well,
better
Dapper sent me
kit.
the top, and as soon as he sent me the top, I was like, "Well, I'm committed." We're committed to the
I want
bit.
to say it wasn't just me spontaneously sending a random top. That was on Chesh's wish list, and it was her birthday.
It's true. He didn't just randomly send it to me. It definitely was my fault.
Well,
Wow,
yeah, it's
way
your
to
wish
win the
list.
woman,
That's how it
Dapper.
works.
Yeah. All right, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Welcome to Debate Hub. We are back, and we are discussing basically the future of the world's power and like electricity and how that's going to be. I've got two nukes and a mathematician with me. It seemed appropriate for what we're discussing, which is nuclear power and the direction governments are kind of going in. I am Chesh, your master debater. I have Jordan, Landon, and Dapper with me. And Landon's name is in all capitals that I just noticed, and nobody else's is. Oh, no, mine is.
That's okay.
That's because Landon is more important.
Oh.
But, and I meant to say that my nuclear things are more either very uncontrolled reactions or reactions that we're trying to start. That's my nuclear side.
Oh. Well, you also know a little bit more about politics than the average bear, in your experience. So I think having
Yeah,
you here is
sorry,
very much
trademark
appropriate to the discussion. So do you guys want to introduce yourselves, or do you want me to do it? You don't want me to.
You don't.
Dapper.
Are you saying we don't want Chesh, whose name is in all caps as well?
Yeah. You don't. Dapper, who are you?
I'm Dapper. I'm a dinosaur. I have a YouTube channel named Dapper Dinosaur. It's not the one with the green T-Rex that teaches you how to code. It's the one with the brown Ceratosaurus that teaches you how not to be a young Earth creationist.
Be a better young Earth creationist. Jordan,
No.
who are you?
Not to be.
Oh.
I
This is
mean,
slander.
someone could definitely learn how to be a better young Earth creationist from your channel as well.
Yeah.
I suppose
That's
that's true,
not-
but that is absolutely not the intent.
That's not the goal, but it could happen.
Mm,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Against my will.
Theoretically. are you, Jordan?
I'm Jordan. I am a former medium or tiny size YouTube channel. If you want to see what I used to do back when I have hobbies, you can go to the Reasoned Out YouTube channel. But for the purposes of today, I am a nuclear engineer. I have a bachelor's degree in mechanical nuclear engineering, and I work in the industry for a company supporting nuclear plants in the U.S. I am required by company policy, even though I'm not going to tell you the company. You could probably figure it out if you tried. I don't speak for my company or anyone in my company. I'm speaking for me and me only. I have to say that. So.
Well, it's good to get the disclaimers out of the way. Landon, who are you?
I am a astronomer, planetary scientist. I do math stuff. As regards to nuclear stuff, I was involved working on magnetic fusion confinement and also uncontrolled fusion reactions.
Very cool.
That's pretty cool.
All right. So I guess
Would
we
an
should,
uncontrolled fusion reaction just be an explosion? Is that?
I think it's just a
Well,
star.
it depends on your perspective. Yes,
everything is relative.
you could say that, but I could not possibly comment.
All right, well, let's get started. Our topic today is basically just the future of nuclear energy and how feasible it is with what some countries are doing with their policies. So I guess the first question we should probably answer is nuclear energy a feasible way forward when it comes to like consumption rates as well as its effect on the climate and local ecology?
Yes, next question.
Okay, elaborate a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yes.
So nuclear is by an enormous margin the cleanest and safest form of power. Now, I recognize that there are some very high profile instances that seem very, very dangerous and very much unclean or non-clean or whatever. I guess I don't want to have a ritual significance here, but when you actually look at how many watts are produced for each death or injury attributable to nuclear power, as well as for how much pollutants are a result of those watts of being generated, it is by far better than solar and wind in terms of pollution and danger to both people in the industry as well as people outside the industry. And so it's scary because when nuclear goes bad, it goes really bad in a concentrated place. And in that place, it's super bad in a way that coal is just not going to be in that place. But the thing is that we don't have the luxury as a species of thinking well, it could be really bad for 10,000 people right here when it's already catastrophically bad for 8 billion people everywhere. And at some point it becomes a numbers game. Nuclear is the safest and cleanest option for energy, and it also has the advantage of, unlike most renewable sources of energy, being as reliable in terms of uptime and as in terms of ability to meet demand as fossil fuels. Because one of the things about wind and solar is that because they're unreliable, you generally need some kind of backup, and it's almost always going to be a fossil fuel backup. With nuclear, it's not unreliable in that same way. You're not going to lose your nuclear power because it got windy, or because it stopped being windy, or because it's got too cloudy, or something like that, or because a volcano erupted and now there's a big ash cloud. It doesn't matter. Nuclear will just go.
Assuming you build your plant correctly and you're not in Texas, who forgets that winters happen.
Well, okay.
But that's
Well,
not a nuclear problem. That's a Texas problem.
Right. That's
Yeah. And I think
Specifically a Ted
you
Cruz problem.
raise a good point. I'll point out to people that if you're going to do power production, you're going to have messes, issues, waste. The question is how much and how well. And nuclear offers some amazing safety options, and contains of byproducts, in part because there's actually so little material that is produced as opposed to something like coal. Or even you say, well, solar is clean. Well, actually, again, you need to consider the entire ecosystem of digging up the materials, assembling, putting them together, and manufacturing them, going through their life cycle, and then decommissioning. That's the whole thing that you hold, let's say, a fission plant to. And so whenever you're going to have energy production, you have to deal with the entire cycle process and what it is. A sensible energy plan is to have multiple sources. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, to coin that phrase. And there are pluses and minuses for various systems, and nuclear should be one of those options in your mix, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. I'm definitely not saying that the only way that we should generate power is nuclear. But I do think that what we should probably do is something like continue to invest in things like geothermal, wind, solar, stuff like that, while also replacing basically all fossil fuel that's currently around with nuclear, supplemented by wind and solar and stuff like that. Because at the very least, when those things go bad, it won't be as dangerous for the people there. And also, I do think that it's important to continue to develop those technologies so they become safer and cleaner.
So I will take a little bit of a contrarian view, which is kind of ironic since I'm I'm professionally a nuclear engineer. But I actually think the best mix would be solar and wind supplemented by nuclear rather than the other way around. I think most of the grid should be something like that. And the reason is that, as Landon alluded to, anyone who tells you that their power generation system has no drawbacks is just lying to you, or they're ignorant.
Yes.
Every single generation,
Yes.
any method is going to have drawbacks, and so the trick is to use different methods to offset each other's drawbacks, right? So one of the great advantages to solar and wind is the fuel is free. Can't beat free, right? And it's also very cheap to build. It doesn't have a large capital investment You can do it in a dispersed area. It's very easy to implement. But the problem as you go up higher and higher in your mix is that you need more and more storage, because
Yes.
it's not acceptable to let the grid go down, right? So, and it's not linear either. There's a paper that I read about earlier today when I was getting ready for this that kind of did the math on how much battery storage you would need if you were going to have your grid be 50, 80, whatever percent solar and wind. Intermittent sources is what we call them. And so if you're where we are now, which is about 10 to 15% solar and wind, it's 4 days of storage. And that's enough to, cover any downtime when the sun's not shining and when it's not blowing or whatever. If you go up to 80% of your grid, then you need about 8 hours or 12 hours, actually, in order to be reasonably confident you'll cover all your valleys and stuff. If you go to 100%, you need 3 weeks. So the amount skyrockets. It's not linear. The amount skyrockets the closer you get to 100%.
Yeah.
Well, if you just cut off that tail, then you don't have a problem, right? Too easy. We already have a solution. So yeah, problem solved.
Yeah. So there are systems, for example, hybrid systems that can be quite effective. In Australia, where they have plenty of sun, plenty of wind, one of the things they've been doing, particularly in combination with like the Jindabyne Dam system, is that the storage is pump water uphill, so that you can build a reservoir and at night let the water come down through turbines, because hydro is a very effective also system as part of your overall energy grid. And again, you also have to consider when you need the power. There's peak power consumption and whatnot. And so having a rational energy policy has a wide range, for which nuclear is an important part. Now, I'll also mention that I am a hopeful proponent of nuclear fusion, and I've been very excited about advances. I know that it's been a long time, but nuclear fusion is an incredibly hard problem, and we have some domes and things going on. There's many different types of fusion plants, and several of them have actually achieved physicist break even. Now it needs to become engineering break even to be practical, and an economic break even to be a thing. But we're working towards that. And again, that's going to be another part of the nuclear family that will come into play. It'll give people like Jordan some interesting things, because some of the atoms relating to fusion, if people tell you it's perfectly clean, no, it's not. I always say, Jordan, that if you had to deal with neutron fluxes that are like 2 to 3 orders of magnitude higher than what you do now, you'd go, ew, that's a big problem. But it's solvable. And nuclear systems will be part of a rational energy policy, assuming you have governments that want a rational energy policy.
Well, the good news in the fission industry, we have we like to say that fusion power is just 10 years away, and it always will be.
Yeah.
In perpetuity.
I know you're over there, but I can tell you about the advancements that are happening where that is the set. I mean, I think, for example, I'm really looking at, the Commonwealth Fusion Systems have a grid scale plant that looks like, in Chesterfield County, Virginia, it looks like it'll be coming online in the early 2030s. Helion has an interesting plant that is also around the time turn of the decade.
They're working on it.
These are going to be experimental systems, but they'll be adding to the mix that nuclear has to offer.
It's funny you mentioned the one in Chesterfield, because that's my company leasing the land to them. But we refuse to do anything else. Like, you want the land, you can build it, and hey, if you figure it out, let us know, we'll operate it. But
and of course, these are experimental stuff. But the tried and true systems of uranium splitting is a very good thing. And I will also say this. Given my other experience, having assisted the Navy on a project, is that if you want somebody to run your nuclear reactor, get somebody who's been well trained and certified in naval nuclear reactors, because those people, know what they're doing. I've been very
Oh,
impressed.
imagine
true.
that. Who could have possibly?
So the thing,
Speaking of,
Yeah.
go ahead, Dapper.
the thing I have with Fusion is that, well, first of all, I expect Fusion to be here around the same time as I expect your dad to get back with the cigarettes that he said he was going to go get 20 years ago.
Hey, I told you not to
Um,
share that.
Oh, sorry about that. I forgot. And the reason I say that, right, is because I am sure that Landon absolutely can show me all these engineering breakthroughs, but people have been saying that with the same optimism for decades. And also, the other problem I have with it is that it is not a viable technology as it stands now, and I don't know when it will ever actually be one. And so, it's
Well, my stance
including
is
in
like,
oh, sorry.
well, it's not viable now, and so like it would be amazing if we had it. We should keep researching it, but like the problem of providing clean, reliable electricity is a solved engineering problem. We already have the solution. Like we don't need
Right.
to. So like
Boil
we should
water.
be investing in fusion as a research thing. But like it's not like people. I think people sometimes have this idea that like, oh, once we get fusion, then we can solve this problem. Like no, we could solve the problem
No.
today. If the entire human population got together and really decided this is a problem we're going to solve and we're going to put our resources to it, in 10 years
Right.
maybe, but 20 years definitely, we could have 100% clean grid everywhere in the world.
Yeah, we could
Well, I
get
think
rid
we
of the need
should-
for fossil fuels, period.
Could you guys do me a favor and define clean? Because I know you brought it up and mentioned it a little bit, but clean does not mean what I think
Sure.
people think it is. So
So-
do you mind doing me the favor?
Yeah. So in this
Yeah.
context, when I say clean, I mean releases small amounts of greenhouse gases that are going to contribute to climate change. And also, that's primarily what I mean. It usually also comes hand in hand with less other forms of pollution, which are gross and people don't want to deal with. But generally, it's greenhouse gases is what we're measuring.
I would say by clean, I mean a little bit more specifically, it releases little enough greenhouse gases that those greenhouse gases can be absorbed into the carbon cycle at a pace that is at least slightly faster than they are emitted by the process itself from beginning to end, including the mining. Which, if people tell you there's such thing as things like clean coal, there isn't. But you can actually get to the point where your carbon emissions from things like nuclear, solar, and wind are low enough that the electrical grid itself would not on net increase carbon dioxide content in the atmosphere, because there are processes that are absorbing carbon dioxide. And if we were to just stop emitting it altogether, the amount would start going down. It would take a very long time to go back down to pre-industrial levels, but it would start. And that's because we have things like plant growth that then gets sequestered when it dies and gets buried or something like that. We have various cycles in the ocean which also usually involve photosynthesis that sequester carbon down at the bottom of the ocean, which is then subducted into the mantle, so it's not coming back anytime soon. So those are the processes that get rid of it. And so yeah, by clean I mean emitting a low enough amount of carbon that it would be going down over time rather than going up, which is what we need to do. Although I don't expect that to happen inside the lifetime of anyone listening to this. And I say that as a 150 million year old Ceratosaurus.
What do you think?
I think this word clean, it's a term of energy that I don't like, because there is no clean energy. If you want that, the best way, if you're worried about, because I would say clean has to do with, I would say cleaner energy has fewer waste products, and those waste products are better contained and better managed, right? That would make something cleaner in a sort of a subjective sense. But there is no clean energy that's typically a result of marketing campaigns that try to promote a certain sectors.
So, just to elaborate a little bit on this, because I definitely do want to get somebody like Maddie to come on and talk a little bit more about the climate change overall. But as you guys are aware, if a hefty shift within the next, let's call it 7 to 10 years. I know 7 is really optimistic for building like a lot of nuclear energy plants, but let's say 7 to 10 years. If we're also utilizing carbon capture methods, what kind of effect do you think that would have? How fast would it be? And is it theoretically dangerous to do that so quickly if it is that fast?
Most carbon
I'm
methods
a-
are energy intensive
Yeah.
and require a lot of energy. So if you want carbon to, let's say, try to handle production from coal and other fossil fuel plants and biomass and everything like that, you're going to have a lot larger energy and production in order to handle that.
Yeah,
And if you're
I'm
not using-
skeptical of carbon capture because, like Landon said, it usually takes almost as much energy as the amount of carbon released in producing the energy to capture carbon usually ends up being similar to the amount. It ends up releasing a similar amount of carbon into the atmosphere as the amount you captured. Now, if we could get to the point where we're releasing way less carbon because we're switching away from fossils and into nuclear, then I think that problem would start to solve itself, because we do have ways to pull carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. It's not like that's a problem that we know how to do that. The problem really is, though, that what's the balance? And the answer is the balance just doesn't make sense for this to be a practical thing. It will require so much extra infrastructure. It will require so much extra energy, and to virtually no benefit that we can't carbon capture our way out of the problem. However, like I said, if energy could get to be low enough carbon emission, which a combination of wind, solar, and nuclear, as well as hydro and geothermal where it's available, which is not everywhere. I do think that eventually could be a thing, but that's maybe in 100 years, carbon capture might be a reasonable thing to start doing. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. I don't think it's in the foreseeable future that becomes a way to fight climate change.
And also, I also worry that petroleum has some unique uses, and we're wasting it boiling water and generating electricity. I think that we should use it sparingly for those things that it is really good at, and
But
use
my
other
tea.
systems.
But my
Yeah.
tea,
Your tea
Landon.
Your tea can be boiled by uranium.
Oh,
Not
Yes.
actually,
directly,
my tea
though.
is
We'll just do that.
my
Do that
Yeah,
over
that's
there.
Indirectly. Well,
It
it's a-
could be
The
boiled by
uranium right in the
uranium
cup.
directly. It could
and
happen.
it's actually
Forbidden
the,
snack.
the little bits of what used to be uranium that go bing.
Actually, technically,
And
I live
ding,
I
ding,
live
ding,
in
ding,
southern
ding, ding.
Ontario, so my tea is actually boiled. My water is boiled by more water.
But sometimes,
Oh,
Chesh,
well,
you can
yeah,
get people angry enough that they'll boil their own water.
Oh, can I tap into that?
Yes, you could charge them for energy production.
Jordan, what do you got for us on this subject?
Which subject?
The-
The carbon capture thing?
Yeah, the carbon capture thing.
So I think that what Dapper said is basically correct. That I think one of the advantages sort of going to a clean grid, again, by which I mean low carbon emissions grid, is that at that point, then it just becomes a matter of scale. You're not contributing to the problem. So if we decide then that the natural methods that are reducing the greenhouse gases aren't fast enough, then we can do things like, oh, well, then we're going to build this carbon capture plant and we're going to use a nuclear plant to power it. And that's fine. You haven't you can then make headway to solving the problem if that's the problem we chose to solve.
Understood. I think from there I would then start asking questions like, what is when it comes to government policy? Because realistically, this is going to have to be world governments making these decisions to make these changes overall. Am I correct about that? I think we can all agree on
Yeah.
that.
The
Okay.
barrier to nuclear power is primarily governments approving it. It's not even that we need extra regulations. The regulations that are regulating current civilian nuclear power plants in places like the United States and France and Germany and whatnot are fine as far as I can tell.
Okay, because
the
that was
problem
going to
is
be
just
another
approval.
question, is regulation, but yeah.
It
think
seems to be
that-
very well regulated. It's sorry, go ahead.
I'd say that the nuclear industry, at least in America and Canada, is the only two I'm intimately familiar with, but and
Yeah.
I'm sure Europe's just as good too. Pretty well regulated. I mean, it could always be more efficient and faster, and we get annoyed when the NRC takes time to approve our stuff. But like overall, they're pretty good to the extent where the Trump admin recently directed the NRC to hey, you need to reduce the regulation for the nuclear industry. The nuclear industry, us, the company, was like, hey, maybe we shouldn't do
That's a
that.
bad idea.
Maybe
That's
maybe
a bad
we should
idea.
hold
No.
off.
You
Like,
need to
the
be
companies are
consistent.
the companies are like, we actually like the regulations, so please,
Well, the company
And
doesn't
I'm
want the
thinking,
fallout
and
if something goes wrong.
the thing is, as well as that being consistent, right? One of the things that the U.S. nuclear and also Canadian nuclear suffer from is one-offs, right? And so you look at, for example, what they do in France. France has a sort of a type of a nuclear reactor which is working well, and therefore you can have policies that are across the French nuclear program, and you can also train people in this stuff, as opposed to having a lot of these specialties. Again, I know there are some general things you can teach, but we would probably do better if we came up with a really good design that was optimized for deployment.
So I think that the barrier to entry, the biggest barrier, in my opinion, to widespread adoption of nuclear energy is the upfront capital costs, because nobody wants to spend $100 billion on a nuclear reactor, 10 billion, whatever, like tens of billions of dollars. That's a huge risk, and it doesn't pay off for a long time. So in my opinion, the future of nuclear energy is SMRs. If that doesn't work, then nuclear energy is dead in America.
Can
and
you-
SMRs.
What is that? Yeah, I
Sure.
want to ask. Yeah.
So a small modular reactor. So
Oh, okay.
basically, the way nuclear power is done in America and most places now is that you have a huge plant. It produces something like 1,000 megawatts electric per reactor, and so you have to have like this big like cooling source. One of the plants that I support has this like huge lake that was built for it, where you need big concrete cooling towers, whatever. It's like a big solution. It takes many years to build, and to Landon's point, because we do it so infrequently, every single one may as well be the first one ever built, because nobody involved has ever built one, right? So the solution to that, if you're not going to do something like France, where they like, this is our design, and that's the only one we're doing, we're going to build nothing but Westinghouse 3 loops to the entire country, like if you're not going to do that, then your next solution is to make them smaller. So the idea behind a small modular reactor is they are small. They only produce something like 100 megawatts usually, maybe it's 50, but something in that neighborhood. They are modular, meaning that they can ideally, most of it can be built in a factory somewhere and then shipped to wherever they need to go. And like you need one. And another advantage is not everywhere needs 1,000 megawatts electric,
Yep.
but they might need 100. And then 10 years from now, they might need another 100. And then you just plop another one right next to it. You need another one, just plop another one right next to it. And you just like, you can, so the idea is that
you can
could then-
factorial your way around this.
Exactly. You could run it at scale. Now, the downside, because again, every solution has downsides. The downside is if you're only building a couple of them, your cost per megawatt hour is way higher because you're not getting the economy of scale, right? But your upfront cost, the amount of risk someone has to take on is way lower, at least once you get past like the first like test reactors, those are always going to be expensive. Once you get past that, and it's a tested technology, your upfront costs are lower. And then if you can continue doing it, then you get economies of scale over the entire country. So you can kind of conquer that economy problem by doing it over and over and over again.
Well said.
What do you guys think is, like, if you were going to talk to either your government or a world government or the UN, what would you say is the best advantage of utilizing nuclear energy, or some combination?
It is.
It's literally the only thing that's going to, in any way, make a dent in climate change. Period. At this moment in time.
Yes.
The way I would pitch it is that it fills a niche that other generations methods don't. So with solar and wind and even geothermal and hydro, they are unreliable. So solar and wind are the worst. We have a number in the energy industry called the capacity factor, and it is if you imagine the thing ran 100% of the time, that's 100% 1.0 capacity factor. And if you're running half the time, you get 0.5. It's a fraction of your hypothetical total power you could be producing that you are actually producing. Solar and wind is something like 25% in their 0.25 in their capacity factor. Fossil fuels are like 0.5. They're actually not all that reliable if you look at the numbers. Hydro and geothermal about the same. Nuclear is usually 0.9 or better. So like if you want something that's always on, so you have a hospital and you don't want the hospital to lose power, or you have a data center, or you have some other reason why it's very important to have reliable power, or you're providing baseload, only nuclear can do that. And that's something that wind and solar can't do without a ton, just a massive amount of battery storage. And so it solves a problem that this other energy solution gives you. So everyone likes wind and solar for good reason. I don't subscribe to the fanboy wars between different, it seems super dumb to me that they all work fine. It's just like use them all.
Yeah, and
like,
use a mix. Use a mix and use things that are appropriate for the load and the area that you're installing them in.
Right.
Exactly. And again, I'm a fan of that, and I think nuclear is a really important part. And small modular reactors are going to play a better thing than these sort of big bang projects that are hard to handle and infrequent.
And so, what would be the biggest?
Like you said about.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, just one thing on the locality. Like,
yeah.
if you're in Iceland, you live on a volcano. Use geothermal. Like, you don't need nuclear. You live on a volcano. You know.
It's like Ontario. Ontario's got so much hydro. Like, everything here is already hydro for the most part, and we supplement it with other energy sources. We can do the exact same thing with nuclear, and better in some cases.
The correct solution is not one size fits all. It's going to matter on where you are, your local geography, your local resources. You're going to have what works in Iceland is not going to be the same that works in Ontario, and it's not going to be the same that works in Texas. You know.
Yeah.
What's the biggest or what would be the biggest pitfall that you're worried about with like governments working and moving towards this? What's like a risk factor that you're like, we got to look out for this, or we got to make sure like this is something that is in the energy industry that's a problem that we want to see if we can fix and or avoid with nuclear. I'm gonna let Landon go first this time, and then go.
I think one of the things that nuclear has is that the whole uranium mining production and refinement is also tied in with non-proliferation. And for those that require the uranium to be enriched between 3 and 5% enrichment for depending on your type of reactor, the same technology that will give you 3% will give you 80+%, and that which you're getting into efficient weapons grade, right? And the other thing to remember is that the even at 60% enrichment, you can make something that does bad things. So the proliferation is a problem, because the same plumbing that enriches it, you just rewire the plumbing and you can do naughty things with it. That being said, there's ways to manage this. And
another point on that.
Yes.
Sorry, I stomped on you. But
Please,
just
go
real quick,
ahead.
something that people may not, it's very counterintuitive, so I wouldn't blame anyone for not knowing this. But in terms of the energy you need to enrich, once you're at 5%, you're most of the way to weapons grade. It doesn't seem like you should be, because you're at 5% and you need 90% to be efficient weapons. But just the way that the math works out, you're actually almost there. So...
Yeah,
when it's 5%, it's 90%, and at 90%, it's 5%.
It literally gets a matter of replumbing to push beyond there, because you've done most of the work. That being said, this issue about proliferation is something that's solvable, and but it also is an issue. Now, we've seen what happens when oil supplies are disrupted as well. So no system's supply chain is completely innocent or so forth. They have their trade-offs. The thing that where nuclear in particular is, as Deborah said, it's not a carbon emitter.
Right.
Well, not during its. I was going to say it's not a carbon emitter while it's operating. It is a carbon emitter in terms of things like currently getting everything made, or ends up using some carbon. But overall. So I think another big problem that really needs to be addressed is the reputation that it has. Nuclear power is fantastically unpopular in a way that is completely uncoupled from the actual dangers of nuclear power. You even see this in media, where people will say things like, in movies or TV shows, like, "Oh no, the reactor is going to go critical, and then there will be a nuclear explosion. First of all,
No, critical's good.
the reactor critical is where the reactor is when it's operating normally. If it's producing power, your reactor is going to be critical on average most of that time. Sure,
Yep.
there will be little fluctuations where it'll go super critical or subcritical, whatever. But overall, it's going to be critical. And second, they can't have nuclear explosions. The only way to get a nuclear reactor to explode is to pack it with other explosives and then detonate those. And then, sure, I guess that'll be a dirty bomb, I suppose. But like, you can't get a runaway fission explosion like in an atomic bomb. You just can't. And also, when actual nuclear accidents happen, with the exception of Chernobyl, they're actually not usually that bad for even the surrounding population. Like, everyone's like, oh no, like Fukushima. Do you know how many deaths were likely to be ever able to actually directly attribute to the nuclear accident in Fukushima? Because it's basically zero.
Most of them came
Chances
from
are
the
Actual
evacuation.
earthquake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Earthquake,
And
Right.
it's
Like,
reactors
it's not great.
are not capable of having a hypercritical device, right? That's a very different system, combining very different physics. It's very hard to do it efficiently, and a reactor is about as unboomable as you can get. It just
In fact,
no.
I would point out that it's so impossible to make a nuclear reactor explode without just having explosives that's also how atomic bombs work in the first place.
You
is
may
that
as
they
well, yeah. It's like the same as
surround
anything else.
a bunch
yeah.
of fissile material with actual conventional explosives usually, and then that explodes, forcing the fissile material together at absurd energies, which then can induce this hypercritical explosion. But you can't do that with a nuclear reactor because the fissile material is too spread out in the first place, because you don't want it to explode. You want it to get hot in a controllable manner. That's the point.
Right.
So, like, yeah, I think
And-
the public has a big hang up there. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
So I think that, yeah, that's probably one of our biggest problems, is just the public hang up. Because when people are pushing to get a new nuclear reactor approved, usually what ends up happening is that it's public outcry. I guess I can't say usually, I don't have all the stats, but I have seen it before. That public outcry puts a pause to it, or where a nuclear reactor is up for like a renewal so they can be like refueled and refurbished and come back online. Public perception is like, no, we don't want dirty nuclear power. Let's get us. And then the answer ends up being like a natural gas or a coal power plant is what's going to replace it.
Yeah.
And like, I really do think that a big part of it is just the public. So if you're watching this,
Sorry, go ahead.
oh, so if you're watching this and you're a fan of nuclear power or just getting relatively clean energy, since nothing's absolutely clean, share this. Go look up the statistics. They're actually pretty easy to find. Go find out about this and like raise awareness with like your friends, your family, your enemies. I don't know, the people who walk your dogs. If you're the kind
Dapper,
of person
that
who
was
pays someone
such
to
a
walk your dogs.
subtle share the stream. I think that's the most subtle share the stream I think I have ever heard in my life. Well done, sir.
Hey, I want the stream to be successful.
Thanks.
See, what Chesh doesn't know is that because I'm going to live for millions of years, I'm inheriting this channel after she dies.
Oh
It's
yeah,
going to be my third
100
channel.
No,
Yeah.
no. I have to make sure this channel grows and makes a ton of money for my daughter.
Oh, yeah,
I
so
have
that she
a
can have it in perpetuity. Yeah.
I have a question about neighborhoods and the safety around nuclear plants. But before I ask that, and I wanted to put it out there so I wouldn't forget, but before we get into that, I want Jordan to have a chance to answer the initial question, or the earlier question that you guys have been answering.
Which was, what's the biggest barrier?
Yeah, like biggest barrier / drawback that you would want people to be aware of.
So I think that the two barriers that have been mentioned are definitely contenders for the best. I would say that I think that the biggest barrier is the economic factors and the risk, which I think SMRs can handle. And the reason I say that is my idea, my hope is that if we get SMRs built, if it's economic, and like, I know data centers have there's bad things with data centers, but we're just going to use that as an example. There's a strong incentive for a data center to use an SMR because it's always on, it's never going to go down, and so it's extremely reliable electricity that they can get, right? If that is true, and someone with sufficient power and motivation wants to build it, then it will get built. And the more it gets built, I think that can help alleviate public fear, because I think part of the reason it's scary is because it's unknown, and what's unknown is scary. People don't know, they don't understand radiation, and why would they? It has nothing to do with most of their lives outside of sunburns. But like, I think that if it becomes more common, by virtue of it being more common, it'll be less scary. That's my hope anyway. But I do think
That makes
both of those.
sense.
And another thing is long-term storage, which is another solved problem. I know you have a question about that, so I'll wait to talk about that till the question comes up. But if we actually did that thing, that would alleviate one of the big
All right.
conceptual problems.
For sure. So I have one more question before we take a bit of a break. And that is, when it comes to, like we're talking about, where people don't feel safe around it, they don't have enough information, they don't really know. People get afraid that a windmill is going to give them cancer. Do you think is
She's
there
not kidding.
small
Sorry.
the module
Triggered.
reactors and the larger reactors, if you were to build them beside, say, I don't know, a subdivision in like just like a regular subdivision wherever you live, is there fallout or concern, barring like, you know, a problem happening? Because I mean, you blow up a building, you go blow up a building, it doesn't really, the damage is going to be the same. But if like just like it existing and the area surrounding it, is there like an area of effect that could be problematic or not problematic?
No.
Provided you do not reach core damage, by which I mean the fuel has been damaged
Right.
and the radioactive stuff is being potentially released to the environment. So if you're not in an accident scenario, then the answer is no. There is no
Yeah,
radiation there's virtually no radiation released to the point where the amount of radiation that might be released from a nuclear power plant is less than background.
Yeah.
You'll get more
I think
radiation
I
by
saw a
living in
neutrino
Denver.
once come from a nuclear reactor. I'll
Denver
point that out.
specifically?
Well, then
Yeah,
because
because
it's higher
Denver is high
elevation,
elevation.
you get higher.
Oh, okay.
Also, Vermont has a higher background radiation than the inside of most nuclear power plants in the areas that are supposed to be occupied by people. And that's
Hey,
because
by the way-
Vermont has a lot of granite, which is more radioactive than most nuclear power plants are.
Yeah.
Rock fact.
Yeah. And by the way,
Now-
I wasn't kidding. I was on an experiment where we had a neutrino created a particle and created a flash, and we traced it back and said, oh, it came from that nuclear power plant.
Yeah, it'll happen.
Oh, neat.
We have seen.
Sure.
We can
the
find you.
concern
Now-
the concern really comes
Right.
from when something bad happens, right? And that's why I think that nuclear power plants should generally be built well outside of like residential areas at least.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
I think that like, you know, like I'm sorry to the nuclear power plant workers, but I think you should probably have to do a little like a few miles of driving down a road that's just an access road for your nuclear power plant to get to work. Sorry.
Power grids are fine.
Yeah.
I agree. Like, because of a possible accident scenario, you'd want to have some distance between large population centers and your nuclear
Yes.
power plant. Now, I work in nuclear safety. My job is probabilistic risk assessment. So, like, the accident scenarios is something I'm super interested in. And people always point to Chernobyl, and that is like the funny thing to me is that is
Ugh,
the least
stop.
applicable accident to the American
Really
nuclear
is.
industry
Yeah.
that you
And,
could think
you know
of.
what?
Yeah.
And one of the things I will strongly condemn Putin and Russian government because they are still operating reactors of Chernobyl design today
that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
in Russia, and that is just unconscionable. We know that's a bad design. The U.S., I think, was it 1950 something or other where we stopped the last carbon pile, and they're still doing it. Just
To be
So-
fair, they have made modifications to the RBMK that make it safer, but certainly not as safe as the designs we use in the
Yeah.
West. Because all kinds of reasons. We have better containment. We have a negative temperature coefficient, so when it gets hotter, the reactor wants to go down. Like, there's all kinds of
Yeah.
reasons.
Yeah, my
I-
understanding is
I-
also that Russia has modified their procedures a bit in an effort to prevent a second Chernobyl. But still, yeah, it's not a good design. They shouldn't be
some
doing
of
it.
those procedures are modified economically by people that want to make side hustle.
I'm gonna go ahead
Yeah, no,
and
I'm
pat
not arguing that they
myself-
should be doing it.
I'm gonna go ahead and pat myself on the back today because I brought all the best people for this conversation. I thought ahead.
I will
All right.
talk about nuclear power to anyone at any time with zero provocation.
Oh, we will definitely bring Jordan on with Manya to talk about occupational health and safety. I'm gonna
I-
do it. It's gonna happen, and it's gonna be one of the most weird. You're gonna think it's gonna sound really boring just looking at the title, and then you're gonna start listening to them talk. Because I assure you, there is nothing more interesting and more entertaining than listening to people's special interests that they just enjoy, because they're gonna make it entertaining and interesting for you. But
Yeah,
I'm-
I can make the chart of nuclides entertaining, right?
Oh,
That's the thing.
absolutely.
I know that people have periodic tables. I put chart of nuclides because there's a
The
lot
chart
of
of nuclide's way
interesting
better.
stuff.
So much cooler.
So, I am going to give us a quick break. So we'll probably put like a 2 to 5 minute timer so these guys can go get drinks or
5 minutes.
whatever, and then we will move into our Q&A section. I do have the questions. People who super chatted their questions will have priority. Other than that, we're gonna get through as much as we can. I do know Dapper has another stream after this, so we're not gonna be able to sit here and talk shit forever. We do have a bit of a time frame, but I think we covered probably a little bit more in a way more condensed way than I think we normally do. So good job, everybody. And we'll be
good.
yeah, we're good. We'll be right back. Hi, thank you so much for joining us. I just wanted to come in before we start back in, and I just wanted to say thank you so much. You will notice if you are watching this live in the future and it is no longer live that the Q&A portion will be missing for you. That is because the Q&A portion of these videos get cut out and then made into their own videos that are available for members. So if you want to become a member, it's like $1. Do it. Do it. Do it for me. Do it for you. You deserve it. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Q&A portion. Landon's not back yet, and too bad for him, I guess.
All right, we can answer the questions. I'm confident.
Yeah, we'll be good. We'll be good. He'll be back soon enough, I am sure. We are going to prioritize the questions from super chats, which means we might be screwed on every other question. So
if your question doesn't get asked, ping me on Blue Sky and I'll answer it directly.
You mean, oh, yeah, absolutely. You can go find Jordan on Blue Sky. I believe I've got his correct handle for Blue Sky as well, but if it's not linked in the description right now, it will be, and he can put it in the chat. So perfect. Lan is back. Congratulations. All right, so first off, I do want to say thank you, Joshua, for the 5 gifted Debate Hub gifts. Congratulations on all of you who are now amateur debaters. Enjoy all the extra content you got, and make sure to say thank you to Josh. Orange Dot for 2 had asked tree-shaped solar panels ?
No.
You could, as a novelty, I suppose, but like my reaction whenever I see stuff like that, or like, oh, we're gonna pave the roads and solar panels, it's like, but like, why though? There's like a perfectly good desert right there. Like, just do that. Why?
I'm a little bit concerned about all this. I've seen some of the videos of all the solar panels going down, and I have a different concern that's more related to how that's going to fuck with the ecology of the desert. Surely they're talking to professionals about this, but I'm not willing to make that assumption. But I haven't asked anybody that I know about that
It
yet.
depends on how you do it. I mean, you're not going to essentially say, we're going to grab 100% of solar over a surface. In some cases, when you would do it sparse, like in Australia, you actually give critters valuable hiding spots.
Well, that's what I mean. It's going to fuck with the local ecology, and that could be good, or that could backfire, as far as I'm aware. But I don't know.
Here's something that happens around where I am, but not often enough, which is solar panels put over parking lots, because it doubles as a shade for your car and also power generation, which usually ends up being primarily for the place that has the parking lot. But that still does supplement the grid. So,
and in Canada, it would cover your car from snow. But conversation for another day.
But wasn't the question pre-shaped solar panels?
Tree.
Yeah. There's no big advantage to tree shape.
Yes, tree.
So the reason trees are good at getting solar power and that they have this tree shape is because they also need to send water up into all these places. And you can't really do that effectively with one giant flat thing. And so they have a lot of little tiny leaves to make that easier. Human-made solar panels don't have that problem, and so they're more effective when you just
that way for some reason.
Human-made solar panels don't work the same way. They have a different chemistry. They have a different way of capturing the light. They have a different way of cooling themselves, and all that stuff. So like, a big square really is going to end up being your best bet in almost every circumstance. So just go with the big square, or rectangle to be more technically correct.
Yeah,
I got a carport. I want to get some
more, solar tracking things, but those tend to be more problematic in terms of their life cycle. So,
next question, which I'm gonna let Jordan go first on because I think he's ready. Ian for 2 said your favorite sources to read on nuclear energy.
My favorite source is The Fundamentals of Nuclear Science and Engineering, 2nd edition by Schultes and Faw.
Wait, hold on. Before you get away with that, let me just. There you
go. So it's my favorite for a couple reasons. The main reason is this is the book that made me fall in love with nuclear engineering. This is the book that was used by my favorite professor in the Intro to Nuclear Engineering course. And it does a really good job of breaking down how nuclear power works and the science behind it, but without getting too stuck in the weeds beyond what you need to actually understand it. So this is a super good textbook on the topic, which I have on my bookshelf right here.
Can I also just say I adore how well your shirt matches your background? the Deadpool shirt looks really good with the Enterprise.
Yeah. By the way, I would also add to that the nuclides and isotopes from the Knowles Atomic Power Lab, their 2010 edition book is pretty good.
2010 edition, guys. Get the right one. Dapper?
So I don't spend a whole lot of time reading about nuclear power in terms of like it itself. So what I end up usually reading about is things like news about expanding or contracting nuclear power sources in real life. So I end up usually reading things like news stories about like a new reactor going up, or things like I think it's Germany who's like, we should just transition entirely away from nuclear power, and we should just let all of our nuclear plants just no longer get renewed to continue on once their current like that's it. And like, so one thing I would say is do keep up with the news on that stuff, because if you are in a jurisdiction that is considering getting a nuclear power plant or is considering shuttering old ones that could easily continue on, you should be aware of that, and you should be someone who maybe, if you're concerned about this topic, which you should be, you can contact your local elected officials, or like even like people who are like not unelected bureaucrats, but who still are amenable to public opinion and whatnot. Because I mean, let's face it, the people who are making the decisions about whether or not we should expand or contract nuclear power are not primarily people who know about nuclear power. Which is one of the just general problems with government overall, is the people making decisions are rarely experts on the thing that they're trying to make decisions about. And so I think that, yeah, get involved if that comes up. If there's a consideration like, oh, maybe we should open up a nuclear power plant in your province or state or whatever, call your governor or your premier, call your MP or your MP or your congressman or your senator or whatever, and let them know, like, I do think we should have more nuclear power. Or if it's in a bad place, like if they're like, oh, let's build it next to this school, no, maybe move it, right? You can tell them that too.
And power plants are things that keep out of away from people, no matter what kind of power plant, if you can help it. And by the way,
if we put the power plant on a movable thing like a train?
Yeah. I don't think
I can think of no disadvantages.
Quite fascinating about.
I can think of the disadvantage that it will be a pain in the ass to connect to the power mains.
Just bushings, just nothing but bushings on the whole thing.
Oh, okay. There we go. We should go the Tesla route and just try to transmit that power through the air, because that's not inefficient and has no side effects whatsoever.
Yeah, no.
Magic.
Particularly if you have things in your teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next
Good
question.
luck if you have fillings or braces.
From Victoria is asking, what do you guys suggest to happen with nuclear waste, and what strategies do you think will be viable 1,000 years in the future?
This is a solved problem, so it's not hypothetical. If you are interested in what storage of, well, let me tell you what we do now. What we do now is the fuel comes out of the reactor, and fuel going into the reactor, perfectly safe. You could hold it, you could cuddle it, no problem. Fuel coming out of the reactor, you cuddle it, you're going to die. So we put it in a pool of water to let it cool down and decay for a while, because it's got decay products that are very, very reactive and very dangerous and very heat producing. After a few years in the pool, it's cold enough that it will no longer melt on its own. So if you take it out, it will no longer melt. Then we put it in these big concrete tombs and then put it in the parking lot outside the nuclear plant. And it'll sit there happily forever, right? But that's not a long-term, meaning hundreds of years solution. So if you want to see what that looks like, there is a repository that was built in Finland, the Onkalo Spent Nuclear Fuel Repository. And it is a great example of how you do it. And basically what you do is you find somewhere deep underground that doesn't have a lot of water, because water is the problem. The problem is you don't want water to carry the dangerous stuff and bring it away to interact with the wildlife or people. So you want to keep it where you put it in a hole in the ground, and as long as it stays in that hole in the ground, it won't hurt anything forever. So they find a mountain or something that has stable geology, that doesn't have a lot of water infiltration. You dig a hole, you put it in a concrete container. In the hole, usually they use clay around it to keep the water from getting in. Backfill the whole tunnel with clay, and you're done. And it's just going to sit there until the end of time.
Do you think that Yucca Mountain, which was a really good design, will ever be able to get back online again?
I think it could. And you know what? My industry has already paid for it. We paid for it. It's already done. We funded it already. It's so frustrating.
Once again, the problem comes down to political will.
Like, We're done. We did it. We know the answer. It's already ready to go. We just want the green light,
Yes.
guys.
Just go do it.
Yeah, the Senate
do
debate
it.
on that ground was really painful to listen to. But anyway, I'm hoping, hoping that somebody will say, "Hey, this is actually a good design. Let's make use of facilities like that."
Okay, so next question is, what do you guys think about the risk of someone blowing up a nuclear power plant to turn it into like a dirty bomb, because that's a problem in war zones? And then they clarified, because we partly answered that question already, and for clarification they mean turning the nuclear power plant into a dirty bomb by spreading radiation, not really because the reactor goes boom.
Right.
It is very difficult to penetrate a nuclear reactor, right?
Yeah.
It was done with a very specialized device on the Iraqi system, and that was actually a plant that was still under construction. But you can fly airplanes into these things, and your ability to get inside the reactor is nil.
Containment structures are several feet thick of reinforced concrete with a steel liner on the inside, and that's just to get through into containment. That's not even gonna spread the stuff around. Like it would be so much easier to just build a dirty bomb. Like just go do that.
That's
like
exactly what I was gonna say. Yeah. It's
just
one
not
of those things like,
enough.
what if someone built enough rockets to fly the Earth into the sun? Well, that'd be really, really bad. But like, I'm way more concerned about certain other problems that are like feasible.
When Russia was like attacking the Zaporizhzhia power plant in Ukraine, I was talking to people about like the risk, and here's why it's probably not a problem, because of containment and all these things. And he's like, someone asked me, well, what if they nuke the power plant? I was like, well, that would be bad, mostly because it's a nuclear weapon, not so much the power plant.
Nukes are bad. You heard it. You heard it on Debate Hub. Nukes are bad.
The extra radiation from nuking a nuclear power plant is just like, it's a tiny little blip. Who cares?
It'd be negligible.
Yeah, it's like the difference between eating 5 pounds of hydrogen cyanide and 5 pounds and 1 ounce of hydrogen cyanide.
Right.
You're just dead.
That 1 ounce is just that's the straw.
Yeah. Ralph asked, how difficult would it be to get breeder reactors and the reprocessing infrastructure to set it up? Is it viable in short or medium term?
I mean,
France did it pretty well.
Reactors are so cool. So for those who don't know, what a breeder reactor is in a in a non-breeder reactor, you have 5% usually enriched fuel, and you need that much U-235 to sustain a chain reaction. And you put the fuel rod in, it does the thing, fission, then you yank it out 18 to 24 months later. A breeder reactor instead uses mostly unenriched or just not very enriched uranium, mostly the other stuff that you can't use, the U-238. That stuff is called fertile. So when the neutron hits U-235, it fissions usually and spits out more neutrons. That's how the stuff happens, right? When U-238 hits, when neutron hits U-238, it absorbs it and becomes plutonium-239, which itself is fissile. So in our nuclear reactor, some portion of the heat is made by plutonium. A breeder reactor utilizes this by having a higher enriched core of like 20%-ish enriched uranium, and then all the neutrons being kicked out of that hit a blanket of U-238 and makes its own fuel. It breeds the fuel. So you can use up all of this natural uranium that you normally wouldn't get to use. It makes its own fuel. It's very cool. And is it viable? Yeah, France already does it. Like their designs that are breeder reactors. They're very neat. They're just so cool.
I'm gonna jump ahead we have a few more questions. We got about 15 minutes left. Ian for 2 said, should the oil and gas industry die like ice? I think the industry should, but not necessarily the usage of the energy and usage of being able to have access to that energy processing.
Sure. Like, should the companies die? Yeah, but I'm a socialist,
industry.
So that's not.
Yeah, it's the difference between like the question about the industry versus the right. So
I think on an individual basis, ice is far more obviously evil and immoral, and of the people currently working for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, a extremely high proportion of those individuals should be in prison right now. I don't that that's the case for like the oil and gas industry overall. Like, I don't think every single petroleum exploration engineer or geologist or whatever, and like every single person who's like mining coal right now should be in prison. I think that a number of the CEOs should be, and perhaps some of the scientists who defrauded the public on behalf of those companies should be. But yeah, no, I think that the percentage of people who should be in prison for ICE is way higher. Now, the absolute
And there are
worst-
some uses for petroleum products that are unique or specialized, and those should be saved for those specific uses, not for essentially, driving down to your local, mart store or fuel. I think we are wasting this resource on things that other systems can do much better on, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good point. We have another question. Orange Dot wants to elaborate a little bit on the question about plants or the tree-shaped solar panels, but I'm not sure, so I'm going to wait for Orange Dot to give me a little bit more of an elaboration, so that way I can ask the question better. So I'm just going to do Borg's question in between while that happens. Can you explain the math about the 5% to 90% of how quickly? Is that math explainable in a short period of time, or are we going to be here for an hour?
It is. It's very easy. So,
Okay, perfect.
if you want to see the details, Google separative work unit, SPU or SWU. That'll give you all the math details. But it basically, until you get above 95% ish, the amount of energy you need to double the amount of enrichment you have is constant. So your doubling starts at the natural uranium, which is
0.7%.
0.7%. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember U-38, not the other way around, so I have to convert. But yeah, something like 0.7%. So you've done a ton of doublings to get to 5%. But once you're 5%, you don't have that many doublings left. So that's why you're almost all the way there. Now, once you get to the very, very highly enriched, the math flips, and then it becomes very hard to go from 95 to 99, But
well, so my joke was way more accurate when I was like, when you're at 5%, you're at 90, and when you're at 90%, you're at 5.
It is also important to know that you do not need weapons grade material to make a weapon. In fact, the very first weapon that was detonated over a city was not weapons grade. It's just a matter of, quote, efficiency. But still, the problem really is that of plumbing. What we knew Gaddafi was doing in Libya had a 5% enrichment, which was a little hot for their reactors are doing, but then they just replumbed it to start hitting to the 60+%. That seems to be that they hold it there and then do a final boost if they're doing a device such as maybe what Iran is doing. But that's a different story.
Politics. Joshua asked a question for the panel's thoughts on more decentralized power production, mostly thinking about more smaller regional power generation sources versus fewer larger sources.
I think that is very useful, particularly when it comes to intermittent systems, solar and wind, because the more dispersed system you have, the less likely it is that any single weather event is going to disrupt your power generation. So if you have all of your power generation in one city-sized area, then one storm knocks it all out. Whereas if it's over the entire country, it won't. Now, the more dispersed it is, then you have the trade-off there is transmission costs and maintenance costs are higher because you have to go out all these places and it's using up more land. There are drawbacks to any solution, but all else being equal, and all else is not equal, but all else being equal, yes, that would be an advantage.
Anyone else got anything to add to that one, or is that good to go?
No. Although I do have to get going right around now.
I was off by 5 minutes. This fucking guy.
Sorry.
This fucking guy.
That's a trademark of Canada, by the way.
Sorry.
Can I ask you one question before you go real fast?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
But I did say I was going to answer it.
That's fair. Orange Dot was saying about the solar panel tree thing was there would be ground panels between the trees, and the trees would be simply shaped with the entire surface being paneled.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with it. It's harder to manufacture. It's less efficient, and overall, it just looks cool. And if you, for your personal use, want a solar panel system that looks cooler because it is tree shaped, and you're willing to pay for that extra manufacturing cost and the extra wiring and all that stuff that goes into it,
And the
then
structural
great,
support
have fun.
and
Yeah, the structural support.
and the wind
like,
resilience. That's the
for-
thing, yeah.
For commercial purposes, for practical purposes, it is a suboptimal design compared to just a standard stationary block of solar cells placed somewhere.
So if it's cheap enough, it like aesthetically for fun outside of your house for landscaping purposes, that could be cool. Not
Yeah,
available right now, and if it gets popular enough, maybe in the future, and that would be neat.
Yeah.
But
It's kind of like installing a water feature. If you have the time and the money and you want to go for it, great, have fun. But we're not going to turn like backyard water features into hydrothermal power. That's just not going to happen.
right, yeah, that's a good way to put it. Okay, get out of here,
All
Dapper.
right.
Go away. Fuck off.
Bye.
Bye.
Go
Bye,
over to my
Dapper.
channel after this. I'm doing a show, Kent with Bent. Bye.
Yep,
Paul,
we'll be done before you start. I'm gonna leave him frozen like that. Look at it. He looks despondent.
Yes.
And he's sorry that he had to run away. I got a booster
he deserves
juice. If I was ever gonna get sponsored by anybody, this is a Canadian company. I don't know if they're even
that's
anywhere
got to be a
else.
Canadian thing.
Oh
I've
yeah,
never heard of it
booster
in my life.
juice. Yeah, absolutely. They're so good. They're like a really tasty, like healthy smoothie place, and you can get like all
Yeah.
kinds of crazy stuff.
I'm doing another Icelandic liqueur.
Nice.
Because I figured Icelandic geothermal. But by the way, geothermal is really hard to do well and hard to maintain because the caustic materials coming out of volcanic gas, those things get eaten to death. I mean, Jordan, you're dealing with these steam plants, and because that's a very interesting part of your systems is the steam side. Can imagine if you were pumping through things like sulfuric acids and hydrogen fluoride and other things like that into your systems. It'd make your
wouldn't want that
turbines
to
a
hit
little
the
bit.
turbine.
but in a geo thing, you got the volcano putting all kinds of nasty gases, and it's a complex thing. But they do it well. Iceland does it well because if you have hammers, hope you have lots of nails to bang.
I was so close, by the way. I just need you guys to understand how close I was to getting all of these questions done exactly on time, just before Dapper was leaving. There's only 2 questions left. I was so close. The questions are a crapshoot, though, sometimes, because sometimes somebody asks something that I'm like, oh, that seems like a pretty easy answer, and then 20 minutes later, we're still talking about the same thing. You guys have done great, though, by the way. Thank you so much for your time so far. Don Giovanni asked, what's your take on space-based solar power and wireless power transmission?
Well,
Landon's got a thing. What was I saying about 20-minute questions?
Is very energy intensive. It's very expensive. And then to transmit it back down to the ground, and you need it to be in a concentrated form and hope nothing gets in the way between the beam and no. Just like no.
It's like, so for like a niche purpose, if you need solar around Phobos for some reason, then maybe, but like all of these solutions sound so cool, but like all we need to do is produce electricity. And where do you need electricity? Not in space. You need it here. So like it just doesn't make sense to go through all these hoops. Like what is the advantage to putting it in space?
Yeah.
The advantage is you're not using land, but like we've got plenty of land. That it's not a resource that we're like gonna run out of because we built a solar panel. So like it's solving a problem that doesn't exist, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're
It's
if
creating
you're
problems
taking like
that you don't need to create too.
Yeah, if it was a situation where we're like, oh, we need energy on the moon because we have a moon base, then maybe that might be something that we could look at, but it's
even
not
then
really
you just put the solar panel on the moon. Like you
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah.
And once you get beyond Mars and in Mars, you're pushing the edge of reusable solar panels.
Right, because you're getting too far away from the sun.
It's gone. And so the better thing to do is to get a slug of plutonium-238 and let it chill.
Dapper abandoned us. I'm sorry,
RTG.
Dapper abandoned us. I'm sorry, guys.
Though to power like a whole moon base, you need a lot of 238. But
yes. Which is why we don't have cities on the moon or on Mars according to Space Karen, because the something that is hard, right? It's the power is going to be a challenge.
What? Can you
And the
guys
heat
give me like the under over on just transmission, like wireless transmission power, because it seems a little
The air is an insulator. Air is an insulator, and it's just you're gonna have lots of losses if you're transmitting any reasonable amount of distance. And so, like, I mean,
You would need an enormous amount of power over the air to deliver just a normal amount of power. And if you
right,
and
it's just not efficient.
It seems like bad sci-fi. So like I've been talking to Chris Shelton about Scientology twice a month, and that's coming up a little bit later, so go check that out. But one of the things he talks about is how L. Ron Hubbard was like LARPing as a scientist doing sci-fi when there were so many science authors doing sci-fi that were doing it better. And Elon seems like he's LARPing as a scientist doing sci-fi.
Yeah.
So he's LARPing as an engineer.
Wireless transmission sounds cool, but it is extraordinarily inefficient. I mean, even if you try to directionally beam it, right, you're still the efficiency is there. The reason why if you're charging your phone on a contactless stuff, you have to sit right on there because the power loss is significant, right? And if you could power the world by RF, besides all kinds of problems there, you're generating all kinds of power just
movement
to
and
lose it getting there. And the pollution you're getting, because again, nothing is free, nothing is quote, innocent. And so, the best way if you're concerned about aspects of power generation is to reduce the power you use.
God, go figure. Imagine that.
The thing is, it's like all of these things sound so cool in like a sci-fi sense. Unfortunately, the real solutions are often kind of boring. But like, how are you going to transfer power? Well, a metal wire is probably how you're going to do it. Like,
metal wire.
I'm gonna tell Dapper he's gay.
on alternating current is a pretty good. I mean, it's hard to beat that efficiency.
I don't know about you guys, but I don't really like the idea of an interwoven like laser intersecting across the sky at varying levels across the atmosphere. That sounds ugly as fuck.
So
sounds
many ways it can go wrong.
It sounds so many ways terrible. I'm just imagining Elon setting up this laser system, thinking he's so fucking clever, and doing it with his like low-level fucking goobers. But then his goobers are like getting nicked by the fucking lasers that are going by, and then he tries to launch a ship, and he's like, "Oh wait, shit! I made a fucking lattice over top. I gotta aim it better now."
And there's lots of stuff up there, right? Flying around. It's
a bunch of junk.
Use a broad collection of energy systems tailored to the area and the needs. And that's going to be a combination of hydro, geothermal, wind, solar, nuclear, and other things. Those would be that's a sensible policy as opposed to pick one thing and only do that.
Another kind of point that all these sort of bounce around, but like we have to remember that we are in an emergency situation. Like it may not feel like it right now, but like the Earth is melting. We don't have time to, even if these scenarios, these solutions would be better in some hypothetical future, even if that were the case. We don't have that. Our house is actively on fire. We don't have time to figure out a wireless water delivery system. We need to use the hydrant right next to our house. We have the solution. Just do it. We have the money. We have the people. We have the resources. We have the knowledge. Why are we not doing the thing? Do the thing.
And I understand. People say, "Oh, so someone says, what about hydrogen?" I say, "Well, hydrogen is not a fuel source. It's a transport. When the energy you've done to split water or get hydrogen there is you lose energy producing hydrogen, and then hydrogen is nasty. It is very difficult to contain. It's very difficult to manage. It's very difficult to handle safely unless you're into blowing up balloons of hydrogen. Then it's cool.
Yeah, look up hydrogen explosions.
Oh boy. Okay, so one last question from Red Cedar, which is a follow-up from talking about storing long-term storage versus short-term storage and how safe that is and the effects. What about reprocessing to reduce the waste storage time?
So, you can reprocess your fuel. So reprocessing means once you've your fuel rod comes out of the reactor, most of the energy is still there. You've taken your fuel rod from like 5% enrichment to like 4% or 3% enrichment. Like it's still pretty enriched. It's just no longer going to efficiently produce a chain reaction in your reactor, so you yank it out, right? But you still have a lot of uranium in there that would be hypothetically usable. The problem
Right.
is there's a whole bunch of crap in there that's dangerous and you don't want. So you don't use it. You can reprocess that to take out all the fission products that you don't want and then kind of re-enrich it back up to 5%. That's a thing you certainly can do. And if you did that, that would reduce the amount of end state waste you had. That waste would be more intensely radioactive, but you'd have less of it. Whether or not you should do that, I could go either way. I could be convinced. I personally would lean against it just because it's not like we are like some kind of precipice where we're on the verge of running out of uranium. Uranium is hard to describe just how energy dense it is, because the way that you get energy from fission or fusion, but from fission is by converting matter to energy, and there is a ton of energy in matter. So much.
Yeah.
Directly converting mass to energy. And so you just don't need much fuel to power all of the fuel that the entire American nuclear industry has used since it started in like the 60s could fit easily on a football field, on a soccer field. It is just not that much. And so like we don't have all that much to store. We have plenty of uranium to last for centuries, and if we ever ran out, we just switch to thorium. So like I don't know. I don't think it's
Could
worth
we
the
like
the effort
our
at this
storage
point.
system have like an escalator on it that if we ever wanted to go get some back, we could go get it if we wanted to start reusing it?
I mean, you
Or do we just
could,
dig
but
it
that
up
would
again?
make-
Or we just keep
Just-
mining?
if we got that desperate, just go dig it up again. But
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I just don't think we'd ever get that desperate. I would
Sure.
pray that by the time we are worried about excavating,
We've moved
old
on.
100
We're doing something
we've
better.
moved on to. Hopefully by then we figured fusion out for sure.
Yes, that's where.
Yeah.
Yes,
No, we're
definitely.
gonna get that
Yeah.
desperate. We're gonna start mining it up and be like, it's okay, fusion's 10 years away.
If we are still trying to do like uranium fission in the 500 years, boy, have we screwed up somewhere.
But boy, okay, that nevertheless, I know all those jokes there, but the progress we've made in fusion is very encouraging, and
Good.
I think definitely by the time the uranium mining cycle becomes a little bit more problematic, fusion will be able to add stuff. But by the way, the easiest fusion requires tritium, and the easiest way to get tritium is have a nuclear reactor generate it for you. So that I predict that fusion fission is going to be, paired with each other for a little while before you get things like your boron
A
fusion.
year or two ago, we did have a show where we talked about fusion versus fission and talked about that a little bit. I think it might be time to do an update. Not today, obviously. Do you two have? Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
One of my friends asked me about fusion energy. Is like, can we do a fusion power car? It's like, oh yeah, we already have those. Totally. The electric cars powered by solar panels. Like, we already have it.
Yes.
We just use the big fusion reactor over there.
The sun is a deadly laser. Do you guys have
do.
any? I think we're about ready to wrap it up there. Thank you all so much for participating. Thank you so much for your questions. Make sure you catch us in the future if you remember. Enjoy all the fresh content you got. This is a special thanks extra to Joshua for sending a couple extra super chats. Super chatting and membership on here is super cheap, by the way, and there's a lot of valuable content, in my humble opinion. As the master debater. But do you guys have any last words that you want to say about either this or something else?
I have something else, but go ahead, Jordan.
If people take just one thing away from this, it's that nuclear power is mathematically, empirically, the safest, the least polluting way to generate electricity, bar none,
Yes.
full stop.
Yes.
There are
Not even close.
drawbacks. There are
But not even,
high
number
capital-
2 is not even close.
It causes, like, there are definitely problems, but the problems that people have with it are not the problems it actually has. So like there are reasonable ways to there are reasonable arguments one can make against nuclear. The arguments people make are not those. So you take nothing else away, take that away.
Fair enough. Landon, what you got for us?
Please visit bringmymomhome.com. Please check out the on Debate Hub as well as Dapper's channel the Dario Dapper interview. Please share it. And by the way, I'm passionate. Share it. Sharing helps. Sharing is caring. I am happy to report today, because of public pressure, they gave the woman some glasses, so she can now actually order clothing rather than sit in 10 degrees Celsius conditions with sub clothing. So your sharing is helping. So please bringmymomhome.com and share.
I'm gonna go ahead and grab that and make it into a short to make it a little bit easier so people get access to the update that you gave us. So keep an eye out for that. Like, share, all that good shit. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. This channel runs only on you guys. Your membership, super chats, and even just your participation, liking, sharing, commenting, and even asking us questions is super helpful and means a lot and keeps the channel running. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This has been Debate Hub, talking about nuclear energy and, you know, something about politics, I guess. We'll be back soon. I don't remember when the next one is. Too bad. I don't care. Bye!
Bye.